You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You're tuned in to NightVision Radio, exposing the truth, one secret at a time. Prepare yourself as we explore the shadow worlds of suppressed history, secret knowledge, forbidden religion, and shine a light on the conspiracies to keep it all from us. Welcome to NightVision Radio. Hey, everybody. Ooh, are you having a week like I'm having? I'm telling you, I'm hearing it from all my friends and family. But it's been one thing after another, including trying to start this show. Just as we were getting ready to start, my computer froze. And I was on it just fine. I was chatting in the live chat room right here at InceptionRadioNetwork.com. And suddenly, when we tried to start the show, my computer completely froze up. It was ridiculous, and I went into panic mode. But I finally got it back going again. But that's just the latest. On top of car troubles, all kinds of crazy financial things popping up unexpectedly. It's been a wild, wild week. And it just finally hit me that, maybe all this craziness that's going on in the heavens has to do with some of this stuff that's going on in my life, in your life, and what seems like everybody's life right at the moment. So I gave my guest a call and said, what do you know about this? And believe me, she has a lot to say. My guest tonight is our returning friend, Gloria Amendola. She's an author and she's an intuitive, and she is all over this solar stuff. Boy, I tell you, the solar flares and the total eclipse that we're expecting tomorrow. Not only are we going to have a total eclipse of the sun, we have a supermoon, and it's the vernal equinox. So it's all crazy. Gloria, thank you so much for agreeing to come and help straighten all this out for us.
No problem, René. Happy to be here.
Whew, I tell you, I noticed you've been posting some things on Facebook already, and the graphs and things that you were sort of keeping track of what's going on. So I don't know if you just want to dive right in, or if you want to talk about the solar eclipse first and how that ties into all this wildness that's going on.
Actually, I'd like to just back up a few days if I can. Sure. Before the solar eclipse. We'll end with that. But one of the biggest things that happened this week, and we've been feeling it probably almost for a couple of weeks because the planets are so big, but we experienced on Monday, Tuesday, in that time frame, we experienced the last of 7 Uranus square Plutos. And that is such an intense alignment. We usually see Earth changes as a result of that, or before it, like the lead up. And it's so deep about transformation, upheaval, and change. And since 2012, we've had 7 of them. And we just completed the 7th one, which is really good because maybe we'll catch a break. But it really is all about pushing change right in our face, and upheaval and chaos, and whatever it takes for us to see our shadow and see what the heck we're doing.
It's interesting that you say that word shadow, because that's been popping up. It came up in last week's show when we were talking about energies at certain places. There seems to be a mirror effect, or a dual effect, a dark and a light, a shadow and a light effect. And it seems to always be present. So while we're having all these crazy things going on. It's not all bad news, is it?
No, it's not all bad. It's just, there's just so much confusion because there's so much conflict. And it's interesting you talked about the duality. You and I have talked so much about the Gnostics, in our deep search of the Cathars in France and the Holy Grail Mysteries and so on and so forth. We've talked about Gnosticism and duality and all that sort of thing. And as I was trying to figure out today, is this really the dawning of the age of Aquarius? Is Pisces really ending? Ironically, I found that in one of the negative aspects of the Piscean age, the last 2,000 years or so, was about the deep duality of Pisces and how we're still experiencing that as we're transitioning in the ages. And that's why there's so many wonderful and amazing things going on, but at the same time, there's so many horrible things going on.
Absolutely. So so building up to this point, this has all been building. Now, what is it that, I tell you what I've been feeling. I've been feeling like a high concentration of energy, almost to the point of, not almost to the point of, but to the point of being actually uncomfortable, and as my own personal energy is kind of revved up, then all these things have started to happen. Just today, another thing happened besides the computer. I went in my kitchen sink is now plugged up. So now I'm going to have to deal with that. Just got my car out of the shop yesterday. It quit unexpectedly, far away from home, on a day that was almost 100 degrees out here. And I had to be stranded out in the middle of nowhere for hours. Just things like that all day long. And I keep hearing the same thing from people around the world, on my Facebook page and other friends talking about, why are things messing up like they are? It reminds me a bit of Mercury retrograde, with conveyances and communications.
The retrograde that happened the end of January, went into February. It's like it's really never ended. And I think it's because Uranus square Pluto was coming in so quickly on the tails of it, and it magnified everything. And kind of the experience that I've been hearing from some people, including myself, is almost like you're stepping into, there's so much energy that you're stepping into this sense that like your worst fears are manifesting right before your very eyes. Like a friend of mine was always had this deep fear. She's got a place in New York City, and on her drive from Connecticut into New York City, her biggest fear was that she was going to break down. Her car was going to break down in the middle of God knows where in the city, and she was going to be stranded, and she was going to be in serious trouble. And lo and behold, it happened to her like 2 days ago. And luckily, the good part of it was that I think her survival instincts just kicked in and everything worked out just fine. But it's like it's almost like these energies are mirroring. It's like a supercomputer reading our thoughts and like, okay, what's your biggest fear or nightmare? Okay, here it is, right in your face.
I'm telling you, I believe that's true, because it is funny, because with all the other stuff that had already been happening earlier in the week, I remember consciously thinking, it was an unconscious thought that came into my consciousness. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, what if something went wrong with my car in the midst of all this, when I really need it and I need to, be able to take care of these other things that are flying around. And I'll be darned if that very thing didn't happen. Now, it wasn't anything like super, super serious. But it could have been a lot worse, especially if I didn't have a really good friend and family member that's a mechanic. It could have been a heck of a lot worse. But it was just the idea that I did actually have that thought before it happened. Now, did I have a premonition or did I make it happen? That's the question.
Well, I don't know, but somebody in my preparation for the show and my deep curiosity out of what I've been experiencing as well, and people that I've been talking to, and I mean, I had 3 groups this week, 3 Magdalene circles, and there were all kinds of experiences going on with people. So I've really, been searching for, okay, what is really going on? Someone had sent me some information today talking about all this solar activity, and I haven't fact-checked this scientifically, but they were claiming that the Earth's magnetic field was extremely low. And I remember watching a Greg Braden presentation a few years ago, and I remember him, if I have it correctly in my brain, him saying that when the Earth's magnetic field got really low, we were going to manifest our thoughts fairly instantly because there was no resistance or lag time, if you will. And today I was thinking about that because it's funny you should talk about your car, because a few weeks ago when we were still on the tail end of some very extreme winter weather here, I have an older car and it runs really well, but I was really, in my mind, I was really worried that something was going to happen while I was driving a fair distance, because it's an older car, and it was just so cold. And lo and behold, I got off the highway and a belt snapped just as I was exiting the highway, and my car went into lockdown mode. And it was really a miracle. I got to my to a parking lot, and somebody helped me, and the car got fixed. It wasn't anything major, but it was like my worst fear, like happening right in front of my eyes. And again, thankfully, as for you and my friend, at least we're realizing some positive outcomes, but it's just really strange going.
It was, and believe me, I thought about that when my car broke down. I thought about your car just having done the same thing. I thought, that's odd, because we generally, our cars are generally in good working order, but it was just funny that they're together, they broke down at the same time. But how does this, if any way, or if you know, how does this total solar eclipse, number one, what kind of effect is that having, or will have at its peak, and how does that sort of dovetail with the supermoon and the equinox? Do all those things sort of figure in together to cause certain type of effect, or is it just that, they just so happen to be on the same day? But does the convergence of those three things have any meaning?
Well, I think it does. The first part of your question about solar eclipses, some people believe that, eclipses, they turn things up. They create evil and chaos, not as big as the Uranus square Pluto. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we saw in the 60s, and actually the 7 waves of it we've had from 2012 to 2015 were more intense than the 60s. And if you look around, you can see a lot of things happening in our world that reflect that. The issues with racism in America that seem to be, coming to the forefront. Different things that were happening in the 60s that are coming back around to be really, that deep root cut out of society. The idea of hatred and racism, just as one example. Solar eclipses, they offer an opportunity to redefine our concepts of who we think we are and the roles we play in the world. Solar eclipses. Lunar eclipses are more emotional, but solar eclipses, it's more that masculine kind of logos effect. And it's really about us trying to figure out what we're doing in the world. What are we doing every day with our lives? That's an aspect of them, and it gives us a chance to kind of make a course correction, if you will. The idea that there's a convergence of events, to me, is no accident, because I see things as highly orchestrated by the heavens when it comes to these alignments, because I always believe that the heavens are, as above, so below, the Hermetic principle, that they're reflecting to us the change that we need to see at this time. And let me just put like a real world spin on that to make it even clearer. I was relaxing a little bit before us doing this interview, and I was watching Morgan Spurlock on CNN. He had a ranger show. He was up in some one of the park system, the national parks in America, up in Alaska. And it was amazing as he morphed through his week there and the different experiences he had in the terrain, how much of his experience was related to climate change and how that was affecting even their moving across the terrain, because everything was melting and everything was softening, and it was almost shocking because it really couldn't be denied, because when you looked at the terrain and the things that were happening in the pictures, it's like, oh my God, so I use climate change as an issue because if we warm up too much, we're in deep trouble. And all the science is saying we're getting there, but we're not paying attention enough to reverse it at this point. You know what I mean? So it's like the heavens are really turning things up and saying, hey, you people down there on Earth, get your act together, make the change you need to make, or we're gonna see that it's made for you. That's how I interpret it.
The interesting thing to me about this, all sort of this convergence on the equinox is, the equinox by its very definition is the time when day and night are exactly the same. They're equal. The night time is as long as the day and vice versa. So there you have that perfect mirror again. The dark and the light, the shadow and the light and the bright. It didn't really hit me like that until today when I just looked up a simple explanation for the vernal equinox, and just boiled down to its most simplistic explanation is that it's the equal of day and night. And I thought, that's really interesting. And it seems to me like that would be almost the perfect energy for creativity. Does that make any sense at all?
I think that's I think that's true. I agree with that. And I think that in this instance, with a supermoon, with a new moon, with a total solar eclipse, with a Uranus square Pluto, and with a bunch of sun activity, solar flares, 3 or 4 times already. I think March 11th, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. I think even the 18th. A whole lot of action and strong, big action. It's just, it's like this perfect alchemy, almost, of these dark and light forces. And to me, when that all gets really blended up, that is super creation. But it's like creation from source. It's like creation from the cosmos at this point. It doesn't get any bigger than that.
Wow, that's true. And on a huge scale, it's sort of, but on a sort of a micro scale, I guess we work as our own little universe, and we mimic, like you said, as above, so below. So if the universe is at its most creative, then certainly we must be as well, or we have that opportunity to take that.
Well, that's
advantage.
A great point that
balance.
You make.
That's why Carol in the chat room said balance, and she's exactly right. It is the balance, and what more perfect time it would seem.
Well, that's a great point, and I really like that. But here's the rub. It is a call for balance, and it's certainly in the Magdalene trilogy, in the channeled material, and other material that's out there too. We need the balance, but we're so out of balance that in order to get in balance, it almost has to be extreme at this point. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the universal forces may be more in balance and working that cosmic alchemy, but we as a people, as in general, not everyone, and, you know, there's plenty of people who are doing okay, but a lot of people are so out of balance right now. It's so out of connection with the earth forces and the moon and the sun and the huge interconnection with the human being, with people, that they're so imbalanced that in order to find balance when you're so imbalanced, you have to have an extreme correction in the other way to balance it out. And that, to me, is some of the destruction we're seeing.
Yeah, and a lot of it.
Yeah.
Which I guess has to happen in some ways. I guess things have to break down. Yeah. You know, I've been reading a bunch of material, I mean, all over the place. Like, another thing you asked about, you know, in the convergence of tomorrow's total solar eclipse, you know, then the vernal equinox, all the solar activity, the supermoon, the moon, you know, appearing at least very close to the earth at that time. A lot of people are saying, I don't know if it's true, it seems almost impossible to really know for sure, but a lot of people think that the Piscean age is actually ending finally, and that the Aquarian age is taking hold more. And that in itself is a struggle of the new and the old, right at the same time. And it seems like our whole world is full of that. Like, while somebody comes up with this incredibly progressive, interesting technology idea, fix-it solution, we still have people holding on to, you know, the same old thing, fossil fuels and, you know, pollution and the whole thing that's driving climate change and GMOs and all this crazy stuff. And it's like, really? We're still locked in this battle? You know what I mean? To me, it seems so outdated, and yet it's still so alive and well. Yeah, it sure is. I wonder how individually you said, you know, a lot of people are out of balance, feeling out of balance. You know, I certainly can't say that I'm always feeling totally balanced. As I was talking about earlier, the last couple of days, the, you know, energy's just been like zinging. You know, but it wasn't comfortable. It was too much and too high. So I had to kind of like bring myself down as much as I can. But, you know, what do you have to say to people about sort of harnessing those energies, using those energies, but not being overcome by them?
Well, I always tell people, and I always try to do this myself, when especially feeling overwhelmed in these energies, one of the easiest things we could do, it's free, it doesn't cost any money, is literally just take a walk. You know, just take a walk around the block. Just take a walk in a local park. If you're in a warmer climate like you are, René, or others, you know, kick your shoes off and literally just put your feet on the ground and plug in. Anything as simple as that. You know, go down by the beach and put your feet in the water. You know, just simple little things connecting to nature. That actually has a great physiological effect on balancing people out. I mean, I've talked about earthing before, and it's getting more and more recognition. There's 15 years of peer-reviewed studies that show when we plug into the earth, we tend to balance out, because we're so removed from the elements that are so important to us. We've just lost. We're so deep in artificial intelligence now and technology that we forget to go outside and walk and breathe fresh air and, you know, put our feet in the dirt or in the water.
And it also has to do with the light also. I mean, they say that, you know, going out in the sunlight, especially early day sunlight, for even 10 minutes a day helps everything from depression to jet lag to hangovers. So it seems to me like it's a combination of these things. As you said, the earth energy, the sun, and even water.
Yeah.
that we
Yeah, I mean,
those are things we could all
vitamin
do.
D, what's finding out about vitamin D and all the things, which comes from the sun and all the things that it can do to help regulate the body systems. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's, again, this is free. You could just go out, especially where you live, because you see the sun a lot more than I do, at least at this time of year. You can really connect to that sunlight and that vitamin D. I mean, those are really simple, basic things that don't cost anything that everybody can basically do. And that really will help immensely.
Absolutely. It's time that we take a quick break. So we're going to do that in just a few minutes and have a couple words from the station. Then we'll be back with Gloria with more talk about the sun, about the equinox, about the supermoon, and about the mystery. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best. Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to NightVision Radio with René Barnett. René will be exposing the truth one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
Listeners, thanks for hanging in there. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Night Vision Radio. I'm your host, René Barnett. My guest tonight is a good friend, a return guest for Night Vision Radio, Gloria Amendola. She's an author and an intuitive. We've been talking about all these crazy celestial changes that we're going through, including the total eclipse of the sun tomorrow, the supermoon tomorrow, and the vernal equinox tomorrow. But I wanted to, before getting further into the show, I did want to mark and take notice that I did get some information yesterday, a sad announcement that a longtime UFO researcher and a really, really nice man. Ron Garner passed away a couple days ago. He was just a great guy, and he had put his heart and soul and every dollar he could scrape together into his research. He truly believed in it. I can't say that I always agreed, that he and I always agreed on everything, but I tell you one thing that I can agree on is that he was a very, very dedicated person, always kind. You could always count on him. He's going to be missed. So our condolences go out to Ron Garner and his family and his many, many, many friends and colleagues in ufology. So he's going to be missed. We're losing a lot of people. Goodness gracious. But anyhow, also, I wanted to mention before we get too much further into the conversation that have a look at Gloria's website, GloriaAmendola.com. That's Gloria, AMENDOLA.com. And you will see there Gloria's books. She's written a series of novels that are, based on real history, based on her real life. And then she's also written a series of books, which are channeled works, where she primarily is channeling the voice. Well, she is channeling the voice of Mary Magdalene. And many people have found those very, very interesting. And not only interesting, but very, very helpful and very informative. So, Gloria, I guess they can get you could go to gravedistractions.com, which is Gloria's publisher. Our good friends, Brian and Laura Kennard, run that outfit, and they're really, really good people. So you can go to Brian's site, go to Gloria's site, or I guess you can probably order through Amazon.com. Is that right, Gloria?
Yes.
Okay, so you could just Google her and you'll find her. Anyhow, and I would recommend those books. Really, really interesting stuff, especially the fictional books if you're interested in the Rennes-le-Chateau mystery particularly. And then, of course, there are many, many people currently and for the last several years that are really, really starting to turn around and pay attention to what Mary Magdalene had to say and what her part was all those years ago. She was kind of not given her due until now. So she's really coming into her own, as we all do, I hope. But anyhow, back to the subject at hand and back to my guest, Gloria Amendola. We were talking about, during these crazy times, how one thing you can do to kind of help ride this thing out and to help sort of work out how to best utilize these energies is to just simply go outside. And as Gloria always says, get your shoes off if you can, if it's not too cold. Get your bare feet on the ground, even lie on the ground, connect with the earth. And also, if you have a water source, water is wonderful. And then we also talked about light and how light is good for you. I mean, scientifically, we just know that vitamin D is really good for you. It cures a lot of things that ail you, including hangovers, jet lag, and even helps depression. So there's a lot about light as well, right, Gloria?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up, Renee, because in the books that I've written, in the two novels, they're modern day Grail quests, with the tower being the major archetypal symbol, if you will. But in the second novel, it's called The Tower and the Land, Awakening to the Light. And the light I talk about and I try to bring forth in that novel is about this really unusual light that I perceive when I'm in France, and especially in the Languedoc, and super especially in the Rennes-le-Chateau area. Rennes-le-Chateau, Rennes-le-Ben, Alet-les-Bains, that whole general area, the light. It's a most incredible light. And I want to segue that into the third volume of Mary Magdalene, Revelations from a First Century Avatar. I asked for a passage for the show tonight, and it's amazing how it all connects. So in this one, and I apologize for not getting you a copy, Renee. Every time I was ready to go to the post office to send you a copy, we'd have a major snowstorm, and I just gave up, to be honest, and I have to get it out to you. But that's how crazy our weather's been. So there's a chapter in here where Magdalene's revealing herself through the hologram as she was healing people in the river in Rennes-les-Bains. And I was at Dr. Caron's garden, just right down from Maison Christina. So there's this one part where Magdalene comes back in after I see her by the river and I describe this, and Abbé Henry Boudet comes in, and he talks about her persona. He says, Mary was seen by the river and was regarded as a holy woman. Mary stood in the shadows and many stood in the shadows and just listened to her. It was her voice that made her most powerful. She was able to call down the light from the stars and bring that light into the body of her congregation. That was communion and the real baptism of spirit. That was her fire. And that was Abby Boudet coming through me by the river in Rennes-les-Bains last September, talking about Magdalene and this whole thing about the light. So then Mary Magdalene speaks up and says, I come to you as your sister in spirit. I come to you so you remember the abilities you once had within you. I come to tell you that they will now be reborn in you again. I am excited you have returned to this land. Know that I will provide more soon enough. And one more thing I wish to say. There is a grand influx of light to come upon your planet. This event will help many more hear the call. The reason I bring that up is because we're talking about light, but that passage was picked before we even started the show. To me, that just, that synchronicity always, I just love it. It always blows my mind. The idea of the light in the Rennes-le-Chateau mystery and what's in the land there, and her talking about, I had forgotten, she says, there's a grand influx of light to come. And I believe that is right now what we're experiencing with all this solar activity and this convergence of events, especially this week. I believe this is the light that she's talking about, that when we're through with being exposed to all these different codes of the sun that the ancients believed it put forth, that many more will hear the call, because we must. And I think it's really what we're going through to wake up to our potential. She's saying, that you're going to remember the gifts within you. And I think we're going through that process right now. And the light, this influx of light, is helping us remember, and according to how far out of balance we are, it will be either a smaller remembering at this point for people or a much bigger one, depending on where they're at. And again, people don't even have to agree with this, but if you choose to, it's like it's knocking us around and saying, hey, wake up, people. You're just so much more powerful. And science is even showing us the light within us, the light in our cells, the light within the human body. And here we are. So it's just crazy how it all connects.
Wow, it really is. Now, if I could just take a little bit of a non sequitur here. The chat room's pretty lively tonight, and Der Huff is asking, the question was, can you ask about wildlife powers and which species you, Gloria, ascribe certain virtues to? And I said, what do you mean, like certain animals? And he said, yeah, owls, deer. And I said, yeah, wolves, foxes, etc. And he said, yes. I know what I thought of immediately when he asked that question, of course, is that night that you and I were going up the hill to Rennes-le-Chateau. It was late at night, and we saw the two little foxes, and which just seemed very, very strange, which never seen any before or since. Of course, I sort of connected it to the legendary Esclarmonde de Foix, who was also known as the Fox of Foix. And but I don't know. I certainly know there are a lot of meanings behind foxes and wolves. It's certainly in Native American legend and lore and beliefs. What do you say about that?
Well, about that particular incident, Renee, that specific one, when you and I were going up the hill to Rennes-le-Chateau at night, I have been up and down that hill, I can't even count how many times, day, night. I mean, I have never, ever seen foxes, and there were two of them. And I thought I read, because I remember we were like, oh my God, we know that means something. I thought I read in Margaret Starbird's book that it was a symbol, it was a Merovingian symbol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I thought, that is just too specific. There they were, the two of them. It was like mirroring. We're talking about this mirroring. It was mirroring the two of us. And some of what we were dealing with up there and the dark and light forces. And, I don't even want to go into the details. And it was almost like our little symbol of this, like, bloodline energy that was just peeking its head out at us and saying, we're here and we're your guardians. And that's kind of how I felt. And I thought that's what Margaret said, but I apologize. I just don't have that book in front of me. That was very specific to Ren and the whole bloodline mystery to me, that particular incident.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I answered the question in the chat room itself, but I didn't really understand what the question was.
Well, I think it was, how certain qualities, or spiritual qualities and others are sort of linked with certain animals. And
yeah. I mean, for me today, I got up early and I have a tree offside my deck, a young tree, but a tree nonetheless. And of course it's bare because we haven't yet bloomed in spring. And all of a sudden I could hear the ravens. They have just a certain sound. And I look and I kind of opened the door and I looked out and three of them came just parked themselves in the tree. And to me, the ravens are a very multi-level, their energy is, they're keepers of secrets. They could be omens of something dying. They, to me, they also connect to the Magdalene. I've seen them in Spain connected to Mary Magdalene in churches, believe it or not. So yeah, absolutely. That was my one for today.
That makes sense because we've also seen her associated with the Black Madonna, which to me has sort of an indication of, not necessarily a darker skin, although that could be also, but as, something that's hidden and in the darkness and something that's hidden. And of course, she was for so many, many centuries.
I agree with that, and I also think there's a part of that that's very Isis or very much the mother goddess that is deep into the fertility of the soil of the earth, that deep, rich, dark soil that creates, that from which creation comes, that womb, that soil, that earth mother, that Black Madonna, very, very connected to the earth energies as well. And interestingly, the Templars were using that at times to mark those energies.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that it's an interesting, tie-in that they brought in the animals into the picture because it seems to be like we're all sort of like turning back to things that, have been here all along, basically for those who have eyes to see, let them see. And these are things that have been around all the time, but we're now seeing them in, signs and symbols and things. It seems like we're all thinking a little bit more than we used to. We're all becoming a little bit more aware. I hope that's true because I would say, certainly as a species, we've certainly evolved very, very quickly when it comes to intellectually, scientifically, and all that. Hopefully, we're doing the same thing in a sort of spiritual way.
Yeah, well, interestingly, somebody sent me a really good article. I'll give a shout out to my friend Kelly, who's listening to the show from Salem, Massachusetts. She sent me this article by Barbara Hand Clow. Barbara Hand Clow, has a very interesting take on astrology, and she's talking about all the Uranus square Plutos now that we've gone through 7. And she said in the 6th square, the 6th Uranus square Pluto, she says we are becoming conscious of the unconscious. As erupting dark forces such as ISIS got more power mostly because of grievous errors of the arrogant game masters, many people could see they'd been manipulated into false divisions. And it goes on and on and on. So the point was, where you were talking about people becoming more aware, so we've become more conscious of the unconsciousness that we've had. Like, we're looking back at things now and saying, oh my God, how could we have done that?
Well,
how could we have just poured chemicals into the water or into the rivers? Just simple things that we didn't even question 30 years ago. We're like, oh my God, how could we do that? How stupid.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're becoming more
not
conscious
only that,
of the
but also some of the violence that we've perpetrated on each other over time. And I mean, it's still going on, but there was a time when it seemed acceptable almost. It was just, that's the way it was, back in, in medieval times and the Inquisition and all that going on. That's just, that was, they were fighting for God, fighting for the Lord, and mow them all down. And we look at that now and we say, oh my gosh, the Catholic Church, probably wishes they could just bury that and forget about that. But it really, really happened. And of course, now we know that that's not, of course, the kind of image that the Catholic Church wants to have today. But why was it okay then? And then, of course, we see, other sort of crazy religious elements going wild around the world. And, I'm not picking out any particular one. We all know what's going on. But it's like, gosh, how can we be so barbaric toward each other still? When at least we know we shouldn't be. Maybe back then we didn't know any better,
I know. We've become conscious of the unconscious. And yet, because we have the kind of technology that we have, we can still see the craziness going on around the world, with different elements and so forth. It's interesting how she's able to nail all that and all these different Uranus square movements just over the last 3 years. But yeah, you're right. Go back in time to that, to the Catholic Church and to the Inquisition and things that happened, and how people do want to forget about them, and yet when we see ISIS doing what they're doing and it's televised on TV and we think it's so horrible, if we look back in our history, we can say, well, it was done and far worse during the Inquisition.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a real strange thing.
It's really crazy to think about. I remember certain towns in France, I think it was Béziers, where they just went in and mowed everyone down, because they didn't know who was with the church or against the church, so they just mowed them all down. And the Pope said, "Kill them all. God will know His own." I mean, just madness.
That's right, and they did it on Mary Magdalene's feast day too.
Is that right?
Yes, they did. They went after him on Mary Magdalene's feast day. Trying to send a little message there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very subliminal, very, very subliminal stuff. And, and not that I want to bring up the negative, but I have to. It's in the news, and it just happened today. It was just reported today, and it's something a little more contemporary of how we're seeing the unconscious. In this Uranus square Pluto, these kinds of things that were being exposed in the 60s, we had a huge movement of civil rights in this country, and we had horrible things still going on of people people treating people of color, African Americans, poorly, very poorly, especially in the South. And Mississippi was a hotbed of that. Well, if you saw the news tonight, and I just happened to catch a glimpse of it, they found this African American man hung from a tree, I think by bed sheets. And while it's too soon to know if it was a suicide, if it was a hate crime, the proper government agencies are investigating it. But just when it was reported out by the news anchor that they found a black man, and it was literally couched that way, a black man hanging from a tree, I had such a shiver go down me, and I thought, am I in 2015 or am I in 1964?
Oh my God.
And I really did a double take, and it's in Mississippi, and it's in the here and the now, and it will be reported more, and they will, I believe it will be investigated properly, and they will get down to finding the truth in that. And I just thought, wow, here we go again with this Uranus square Pluto, and we're becoming so conscious that even one act of that alone is enough to make many millions of people shudder. So we have made progress, thank God, but we're still, see how these Uranus square Plutos come around, and they're still forcing us to look in the mirror at who we are.
Yeah, it's astounding. I just looked on CNN.com and I saw what you were talking about. It looks like the FBI is investigating that, as they well should. It's really crazy, on the heels of the, Oklahoma, what was it, Sigma Alpha Epsilon video.
Oh, I know.
Viral. And then even finding later that you see the, house mother, the, white-haired grandmotherly lady sitting there singing along with them and singing the N-word. You think, oh, my Lord, what in the world is going on here? And I tell you, Oklahoma is my native state, and I know there was a lot of people in an uproar about it because there were probably a lot of innocent fraternity members that did not participate in that, but their house got closed down. But I was quite proud of David Boren, the president of Oklahoma University. He's a former governor of Oklahoma, and I was very, very pleased that he came out and acted swiftly and said, we're not going back there. We're not going to do this. This is not what we're about. And it was appalling. And then to have what you just revealed, to find out, because of course they were singing the song that said, you can hang them from a tree, but they'll never sign with me, meaning they'll never join SAE. And now we have someone who's been hung from a tree. Now, I would have a very, very difficult time being convinced that a Black American man would hang himself from a tree.
I agree.
Knowing the
I totally
connotations of that in the Black community, I don't believe it. Well, that's really terrible. I don't mean to get off, on a tangent about that, but it is, very significant and very revelatory about, where some people's heads are at right now. Terrible.
Well, and also, too, I think for people listening to the show, it's a very good example of the confusion out there. And yet, what did you say? You were very proud of the president of the university in Oklahoma who said, hey, we're not going back to that. Mm-hmm. That's not an incident we want to repeat. So even though these deep-rooted shoots are popping up, they're not pervasive, but they are shoots popping up. It seems like, with everything I read about the shifting of the ages, that Piscean duality that has been raging, because it will always rage at the end of the age, and we are at the end of the age, I'm convinced of that, that it's not that it's wiped out yet, if you will, but enough people know that it's wrong, and enough people are speaking out, and we have the technology to broadcast that, to millions of people. So while the event itself it brings up very difficult feelings, because this is what people are feeling. At least there are enough people who do know what the right thing is going forward. And that's the age of Aquarius stepping in and saying, oh no, we're not going back there. We are moving forward, and we are moving to equality. So, maybe as difficult as an example it might be to listen to, it's a good one, and not a good one, but it's a constructive one in that we can see the confusion that people have when they see this stuff, but yet to know that enough people are stepping up and saying, that's not right. We know it's not right. It's not, we're too conscious now to turn back.
Boy, I sure hope so, because that is very bad. And, it was embarrassing for me as a native Oklahoman, but, I'm sure it's not just in Oklahoma. And you're right. It could just be a little thing popping up here and there. But it sure is strange that happened. And then now we have this terrible crime. We'll see what the investigation turns up in that.
Well, I've been thinking about who is really, placing these. Yes, I know these events are happening, but who are these people behind them? It's almost like, and God forbid somebody lost their life, and that in itself is terrible. But it's almost like, that these events are being staged by people for like maximum effect, to really get to people's core fears, if you will. And so that tells me some of the people that are probably going after staging these events, not that they're not real, but I'm just saying really going for this maximum theatrical effect, if you will. It's almost like they're really trying to play at people's fears, their deepest fears. And I think, who are these people that this is their modus operandi? Like I guess that's where they're coming from, right?
I guess so.
There's plenty of us who know it's just totally wrong.
Well, let's sure hope so. We're going to have to take another quick break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with Gloria Amendola. So please stay with us.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best. Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey, IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to Night Vision Radio with René Barnett. René will be exposing the truth one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You are listening to Night Vision Radio. I'm your host, René Barnett. My guest tonight, my good friend, author and intuitive Gloria Amendola. We're talking about all the craziness in the skies, the supermoon, the solar eclipse, the equinox. We're getting into all that. I want to remind everyone that you can check Gloria out at her website, www.gloriaamendola.com. You can also get her books on her website or on Grave Distractions website, gravedistractions.com, publishing company, or just go through Amazon. You can get them anyway. I think it's probably better for Gloria if you order them directly from her. Is that right? Or from, am I right or wrong?
Yeah, if they order them from Grave Distractions, it's better for us.
If you go directly,
than just ordering them from Amazon.
So that'd be cool. If you want to get some of those books, just order directly from the publisher. They're really great. They're on top of it, and they'll get your books right out to you. Also, there are ebooks, of course, that you can avail yourselves of. Now, Gloria, I know I want to get into some good stuff, and if there are any Rennies out there listening, you'll want to listen up, because we're going to talk a little bit about all these things that are going on and how they're affecting that region of Southwest France and that very, very special place, Rennes-le-Château. But first, I want to get in a couple of questions, if you don't mind, from the chat room that are just burning in my little chat room mates' minds here. Neutron says, René, if it fits, please ask Gloria if she ever uses sidereal, and I will apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, astrology, cycles, and charts.
I don't, because I'm not that good at the astrology, but I do. The sidereal system, I think, is defined, the signs are based on the fixed stars, but I do consult a website, and I have for years, that does work with that form of astrology, and I'll give you all the website so you can check it out. It's a little sophisticated at times, but the material is really just world class. So his name is Nick Anthony Fiorenza, Fiorenza, and his website is www.lunarplanner.com. That's LUNARPLANNER.com. He's got some great information, and he does use the sidereal astrology too. So he's been around a long time. I suggest checking him out.
All right. Well, that's good info. And Der Huff in the chat room says, René, how does she feel, meaning you, Gloria, about the concept of the collective, the concept that after the December 2012 event, the subconscious rolled to a collective energy?
Well, I totally get that. That's a great question, and I'll give a real-time example of how that's been personally affecting me. And I found out last night, someone else in one of my Magdalene circles in the Hartford area in Connecticut. Over the last few weeks, meaning the collective consciousness, that's what he's talking about, like
Sure.
our individual consciousness, if you will, kind of breaking down and melding more with the collective, with everyone. About 2 weeks ago, this was happening to me at a furious pace, and I was going out of my mind. I'd be sitting in my living room, and I'd be perfectly fine, at least I thought, And I would just be sitting there kind of whatever, whether I was watching TV or just being quiet or listening to music. I would be fine. And then all of a sudden, I would feel like a wave of terror, like this feeling of, when you feel terror inside, you feel powerless, whatever it is. It was like a wave, and it's coming to my shore, and it's like getting close to me. And all of a sudden, I'm steeped in this feeling, I can't even fight it, of terror. And I don't even know why. And by the time I figure out what the heck's even going on, it's already moved on. And I'm like, what the heck was that? And then maybe like a half hour later, I just shook it off, and then a feeling of anxiety, same kind of thing. I see the wave coming. All of a sudden, from being peaceful in my house or driving down the road in my car, I'm feeling like this massive wave of anxiety, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. And then before I could really even fully wrap myself around it, it's gone. And I came to the conclusion that I was experiencing levels of fear and panic, and that's in the collective. And it was just like moving through me, kind of like I said, like a wave. It was just the strangest thing. And I don't think I've ever felt that before so clearly.
So you felt like it wasn't necessarily your own fear, but you were tapping into something.
The collective.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I can usually tell when it's in my own fear. I'm usually tapped in enough to know when something's bothering me. Not always, but most of the time. And if I'm having a bad dream or a remembrance of something, I've done a lot of that work. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but this was clearly like not connected to anything. It was just like rolling on through, and it just kind of rolled right through me. And it was very unsettling at first, and then I kind of finally said, oh my God, it's the collective. And I'm really feeling all that big vibe that's out there with people.
Wow. I mean,
kind of crazy.
It reminds me a little bit of, of being empathic, and being able to feel others and what's out there. I remember I used to not be able to ever go to a funeral. I mean, even if I was just there to sort of be supportive to someone else, even if I didn't know the person who had passed away, because the moment I would step into the room, I would automatically feel all the emotions from everyone. So it wasn't just one person's emotions, it was everyone's. And it would just be overwhelming until I figured out, because I was just a kid when this started happening, and I finally figured out what I was doing. I was tapping into everyone else's emotions, and I was able to kind of learn how to recognize that and control it so that I could actually be there and maybe be of some help to someone else instead of going into hysterics myself and having people think I was crazy. But it's a little bit like that, isn't it? It's like
it absolutely is. And I mean, thank God you found the filters, and me too, doing intuitive work. Like, you've got to find the filters, because you've got to be able to, shut it down. You've got to be able to function. And so it's a crucial tool, and some people can, and their empathy literally can drive them crazy. So I found that, so because I have those filters pretty strongly in place for myself for obvious reasons, I was absolutely shocked that those waves of those kinds of feelings came, floating through my living room, floating through my car as I'm driving down the road. And I knew that it was so big in the collective that it just broke down the barriers of my protection that I have in place to function in the world. When you are sensitive and can pick all that up and know that you're picking it up. So I knew it was really big out there in the world, and I just had to kind of go into a place of acceptance that I needed to experience that and understand the some of the overriding feelings that a lot of people were feeling. And luckily, as soon as they came in, they left. So I was relieved by that. It wasn't like anything stayed with me. It was just like rolling through. So that was a great question. And I think a lot of people are feeling that now, but if they're not aware of it, could you imagine how unsettling that is for people?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you work with people, on a one-on-one basis as a counselor and intuitive, and you do that in person, you do it on the phone. So you must have been able to develop some kind of way to effectively help people without taking on whatever issue it is that they've brought to your doorstep, I would imagine.
You have to, because if you don't, you really can't do the work without getting sick.
By the way, in case someone listening would like to book an appointment with you, how do they do that? I know I just call you up. I just call you up.
They can go to my website. There's an email there. Or they can reach out to me on Facebook and send me a private message.
Is there like an
a lot of stuff coming up for a lot of people now, I'll tell you, because as much as your person in the chat room is realizing we're feeling the collective, what I'm also seeing with people is that the barriers with linear time are also kind of collapsing with the magnetic field reducing. And so those clear boundaries of what we thought was past, present, and future is kind of all the quantum one, and it's got people off center, or they know they've got to work with it. So a lot of that stuff is coming up for people, and very interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. I want to give you one more question, if you don't mind, from the chat room, and then we'll get right into the RLC material, because then we'll be down to about the final 15 minutes. But Der Huff, boy, he or she, I don't even know. I feel like I know this person, and I just realized I don't know if they're male or female. I think male, I'm guessing. Says, what does Gloria feel that the pineal gland, how do you feel the pineal gland factors into our experiences?
Well, that is another great question, and also very timely. There's two ways I'd like to answer that. One, we know from ancient Egypt and the Eye of Horus, right? That eye, that was always basically connected to the pineal gland, and the pineal gland, whatever you want to call it. And even some of the papal symbols with the pine cone, we know that's all about that pineal gland, which is really its own organ, its gland in the body, and it's very receptive to certain kinds of light, and it's also can give us tremendous ranges of perception. So for me, I function with my pineal gland, and I'm very in tune with that light and with that flowering of the pineal gland. What is so interesting, and this is kind of this duality thing we've been talking about all night, Pisces, Aquarius, all the alignments, is that all this fluoride in our water, especially in America, because I think we're drinking more fluoridated water in America than the rest of the world. And they know from science now for sure that the fluoride calcifies the pineal gland. So, there's a lot of people who are into conspiracy theories and, whatever, and they believe that that's being done to us intentionally to dumb us down, especially at this time where all these evolutionary changes are coming in. And so people's pineal glands are heavily calcified and damaged by the fluoride. I mean, they even found when our soldiers got into the concentration camps in World War II, they found tremendous supplies of sodium fluoride by the drinking water, because Hitler and his cronies were fluoridating the water to subdue the people, to dumb them down, to make them docile and not, resist their authority, and so on and so forth. And we know all those German scientists came over to America post-World War II, right? And we learned things from them. Well, anyway, it's just kind of weird. And so that's the thing we need to be aware of, is to stay away from the fluoride with our pineal gland, because our pineal glands really are magic for us, and we all have them. And when activated, they give us a much richer experience in life. I think that's part of the Jesus teachings, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, I think there's some big secrets about that. I mean, they have a giant replica of what looks like a pineal gland at the Vatican, in a statue. So, I think there's big information about that we haven't been completely privy to just yet. But we were talking about, this light and everything that's going on, these current events, this supermoon, this solar eclipse. You mentioned on the break to me off the air that it was having some real impact on places like Rennes-le-Château, which, as we know, is a very special place, largely because of the landscape, because of the telluric currents there, and other properties that it has. So what did you mean by that?
Well, I've been thinking about the landscape temple that our beloved Henry Lincoln has, given us this whole idea and all these wonderful measurements. And so for those of us that really resonate with the landscape temple in the Rennes-le-Château area, it's such a place in other sacred sites too, but for me, because I just so connect with that area and the light that's there, it's so rich and fertile and powerful already. And so when these alignments come in and move about a landscape that is already surrounded by certain geometries and formations which are a pulsating harmony and very sophisticated codes of light, if you will. That's the way I'll put it, that really interact with the human body. I would just love to be there right now, receiving this kind of energy. Like, can you imagine being in the river in Rennes-le-Ben, or even sitting by the Tour Magdala, up in Rennes-le-Château, and literally just, feet on the ground, you're sitting on the bench up there, bare feet on the ground, plugged in, and you're just receiving this incredible cosmic energy in a place that's already so connected to the earth and the sky. You know what I mean? There is so little separation there that it would just be quite the experience to be there. It would be like receiving a huge bolt of lightning, I would think.
Wow. That would be a great place to be. I know you won't see the total eclipse from there. There's only a couple places that are populated that people can actually get to, and a couple of islands in Northern Europe. And I heard today a guy on NPR who had actually flown there for that very event, and he said about 8,000 people had shown up to the island where he was to have a look at the total eclipse tonight. And, other than that, now I did hear that also that tonight, I think it's at 4:30 a.m. Eastern time, people can begin to watch the eclipse and view the total eclipse online, from where it will be visible. Now that'll be, I guess, 1:30 in the morning Pacific time where I'm located. I'll probably be asleep, and I'm hoping that I can just click on it tomorrow when I get up and experience it in, belatedly. But it should be interesting to watch, and that's how you can see it. If you're not where you can see it, you can tune in on. That would be 1:30 a.m. Pacific time, 4:30 a.m. Eastern time. So, goodness, boy, the chat room is just going and going. But I want to carry on with this RLC conversation if we could.
Okay, I was going to say, if you want to take questions, I'll take them.
Yeah, well, I want to kind of go out now. My goodness, what is going on here that they're talking about? All kinds of things. The earth changes. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just gonna keep going because I'd have to scroll back. I'm sorry, guys. If you've sent me a question in the chat room, if you wouldn't mind, copy it and paste it into the window again for me. And when you do pose a question, if you could do it in all caps, I can see it easily and pick it out of the crowd, which most of you guys do that anyway. So you know the drill. Anyhow, but back in Rennes-le-Chateau. So what do you expect that our dear friends who are fortunate enough to be there tonight and tomorrow, what do you expect that they're going to be experiencing there? And what would you do if you were there? What would you be doing?
Okay, well, if I was there, I don't know what some of the people expect there because they live there every day, so they kind of get used to the energy there. But if I were there, first of all, if it was warm enough, my feet would be in the water, in the river, in Rennes-les-Bains. That's where I'd be connecting to the light coming in. I'd be connected to the water. I believe the water is actually, filled with the light. I think it's filled with Ormus. I think it's, pure magic, and that's where I'd be. If it wasn't warm enough to do that, I would probably be up at Rennes-le-Chateau, sitting on the bench by the Tour Magdalene, just kind of taking it all in.
Looking out over the valley.
Yeah, looking out over the valley and just, because, Henry is so clear about the Tour Magdalene being placed, it really stretched to the end of that line that goes all the way through to Arc and then to the cave just beyond the grotto, just beyond Arc. I would want to be in a landscape, right near a landscape point that I knew was incredibly potent. I might be in Esperanza at the center of the six-pointed star. That's another place. But I would find some place in the landscape that's incredibly potent. La Pique, the center of the five-pointed star. And that's where I'd plant myself, and I would just do a quiet meditation or just relax, just enjoy the beauty and just take it all in.
Yeah. And you're right. I think it does make a difference if you are there all the time. I think you do sort of conform to that energy, and then when you get away from it and then come back, I think it's all the more powerful. So it's kind of nice to go away and come back again.
It is. I mean, I don't know what it's like living there 24/7, but I know when I go, it's my body's just so happy to be there.
Oh, wow. I've got one last question for you. We're down to the final 5 minutes, and it's a doozy. It's a doozy. Oh, and I made a rhyme because it's a doozy, and it's from someone named Cruzy. So Cruzy would like to know, what is Gloria's all-time best experience? And I can't quite read and what is her dream? Oh, what is your best experience that you've had so far, and what is the experience that you dream of having?
Just in general?
Yeah, I think probably, the way I'm interpreting it, I could be wrong, but I would think, a spiritual experience or a paranormal or psychic experience or somehow a profound experience. Okay.
All right. Oh, well, seriously, there have been so many on this journey. To think back quickly to what might have been the most amazing one is kind of hard to pick up really quickly. But I will tell you that when I was in France last September, and I had done enough past life work where I wasn't really sad to be in a certain location and have a memory or, just had to deal with some of that, but I was pretty clear on a personal level. I remember being at the Dr. Caron's garden in Rennes-les-Bains, and I remember just sitting by the river, not knowing I was going to start channeling in what's in the book. But really, it was just such a gorgeous day. I was just sitting there trying to absorb the sun and feel the peace and listen to the water. I was just really happy to be there, and it was that moment where the light came in a way that I've never been able to perceive before. And I knew I had broken broken into. I knew I had pushed through. I knew I had, I don't know what the right words are, but I was experiencing multidimensional reality at its best in one of my favorite places in the world. And when the hologram opened from that light, and I could see Mary Magdalene doing her healing work by the river there, it was just one of those moments that I'll never forget. There have been so many, but, you know, doing the great work, doing the alchemical work is a tough slog for a lot of years. But that was kind of like the payoff, finally, after so many years of you know, clearing the stuff inside, the old beliefs, the old memories, blah, 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 all that stuff that we have to go through. And I think for me, that was just the pinnacle of, oh my God, this is the fruit of your labor in this moment, is being able to perceive all this and then still just be sitting on the park bench, being peaceful, enjoying the day. You know, it was just, I don't know, it felt right.
Yeah, that does sound like a great moment. And then in the last minute and a half, is there something you're trying to achieve, some particular experience?
What I would like to really be able to do on a physical level is I would like to be able to take some of the healing dreams where I see people healing me and others in dreams physically, like Jesus did, like others did. I would like to be part of not just me, but a large group of people who all of a sudden could figure that out and start helping people, just start alleviating the suffering in the world. Physical, emotional, mental suffering, just really being able to just wave your hand and heal people so that they can live a good life.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Shades of John of God.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're all supposed to be capable of, all of us.
Well, you know, maybe one day. Well, we are evolving. You know, we do have.
We are.
Evolving our abilities and evolving everything else. Now, Gloria, we are down to like the final 10 seconds of the show. So I want to thank you for agreeing to come on and help us out with this information about all this craziness that's going on with the sun and the moon, which is also another mirror because, the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine, and we've got these aspects coming together all on one day, which is the equinox, which is just crazy. So thanks for helping us out with all that, and I hope that you'll come back again.
My pleasure. It was great to be on, Renee.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to our wonderful producer, MJ. We love you. Thanks so much for being there with us every single week. And thank you, most of all, to my chat roomies who keep me in line during the show and entertain me with their questions and very intelligent remarks. So thank you so much. Hope everybody has a wonderful night.